Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another art video. Today I'm creating something loose and abstract and just having a play and getting messy, and I really enjoyed doing it. So I watched a video by Clair Bremner where she did this technique of taping together multiple pieces of paper to create an abstract series that was kind of coherent, but each piece was its own individual thing. And she uses much larger pieces of paper. I've just got little A6, I believe they are, postcards, and I'm having a play and getting creative with all of my acrylic paints. I start off by creating this layer of basically camo using all different greens. I wanted to use some of my larger tubes of paint first because the smaller ones, I really love the colours, but obviously there's not so much of them. So I kind of wanted to have a play around with the green to get started. I love that I've got this sheet and I can just mix my colours on the sheet next to the artwork that I'm creating. I really like that I can just get messy and play around. It adds to that feeling of being messy and creative and not too tidy and neat, which I tend to do in a lot of like my landscape pieces. I try and get too neat and exact and perfect, and it doesn't always work out for the best. This is where I start to use some more of the new colours that I've bought, the De La Rowney acrylics, just adding another layer on top of this green camouflage background. I'm watching Clair Bremner videos at the same time as painting this, so you can see the kind of inspiration from her coming through with the colour palette and then sort of the mark making. I was watching a video where she was creating one of her pieces where she does trees and stuff, so I started adding in the trees and tried to add in like the different colours and textures and stuff in the trees and branches using different colours of acrylic paint. I wasn't really leaving enough time between like each layer at this stage for the paint to dry, so it all kind of just smudged into one. And then I decided that I was getting too literal and this was supposed to be an abstract piece, so I covered it all up and started again. I really like the pink and orange colour together, so that was the new base, the new background that I was going for. It's beautiful weather in the UK at the moment, so between layers of paint, like letting it dry, I was sat in the garden in the sunshine, just enjoying nature and trying to get a little bit of a tan because my legs are so pale. I started to use the palette knife technique that I was using in a previous video, but I wasn't loving how it was turning out, and it was using quite a lot of paint, and I was like, this is not going to work out. This is going to be quite a lot of paint that I'm going to be using. So I started using the paintbrush again and merging things into each other, and decided that I was going to use the palette knife for finishing touches and add in like the final layers on top. I really wasn't sure on the colour palette I was using. I was kind of making it up as I was going along, adding back in some green here. I was really enjoying having a play and just figuring it out as I was going along, but I probably should do like some colour tests and think of a colour palette before I begin. I was a bit nervous to add this blue in. I was like, it's just another colour that's going to add to this whole piece and it might be too much, but I think the blue really sets it off, and then when I start adding in the orange, it really makes it work together, or really makes it start to come together. It's not fully there, but I like the blue and the orange together. Obviously they're opposite on the colour wheel. I really like where the orange and white paint hasn't mixed totally together, and I've got like stripes and streaks of white in with the orange. I think it looks really nice. In some areas I made a bit of a mess. That light area at the top is a bit of a mess. My acrylic paints are quite thick. I think where I'm watching Claire and she's using so much water with her paints, mine looks very, very thick in comparison and feels very thick. And yeah, I'm still getting used to how much water to use, and obviously here I'm using the acrylic paint straight from the tube. I like that I've got different sizes of these palette knives that I can add smaller details or do large areas. I always find whilst watching other people create acrylic art, I'm like, they look so like they're really considered and putting stuff in places deliberately, like putting different colours in places deliberately. And watching this back, it looks like I know what I'm doing for some of it anyway. And I really didn't. I was really making it up as I was going along. Orange is probably my favourite colour at the moment, so I end up using quite a bit of orange. I'm going to have to get a big tube of this orange paint. I like how these lighter colours, the lighter blues, like really brighten up the piece, so I keep trying to add in more of that and a little bit more of the pale pink that was coming through from the background layer, adding some of that in now. There's areas where the dark orange that I've put on is gone quite a browny colour where it's over the top of the green, so I end up trying to cover up as much of that as possible with a lighter orange or with more orange just to thicken up the layers. Now I'm trying to add in the details, and I probably should have tried to use the palette knife and create these lines and stuff whilst it was still wet. It was a very hot day and things were drying quite quickly, and I had a break before I thought about what the next stage was, and yeah, it wasn't quite working out. So then I'm trying to use white paint on the edge of the palette knife to create the lines, and it just makes a mess. It's not even along the length of the palette knife, and so I've got these like splodges, so I end up covering up quite a lot of what I've done here, even getting out the white Posca pen to try and fix bits of it. It seems to work where I just dab it straight on the paper rather than dab and drag. So some of those bits work, but yeah, I have to cover up quite a bit of it. And then get out my Posca pens and start adding some random dots in places. I realised as I was doing this, some areas were still a bit wet, so I had to try and fix that. I've got different sizes of Poscas, so the pastel colours are larger and then my white Posca pen is really small. And then I didn't like how I did some of the dots, so I end up going back in a bit with some more acrylic paint to cover up those areas. It's a whole process, this thing. I spent most of the day working on this with like breaks for lunch and letting the layers dry, and I really enjoyed the process. I really enjoyed the day. I don't have so much work on at the moment, which is a bit of a shame, and I am looking for work, but yeah, it was such a lovely sunny summer's day, painting and just switching off. It was perfect. I really enjoyed it. I like the colour palette that I ended up with. I like the overall look of everything. There's areas that I would improve, but it was just a fun experiment. When I come to take the tape off, I'm still having issues with it ripping the paper. Yeah, so it kind of ruins some of the pieces, so they're a bit of a mess, but oh well. They're not to be sold, they're not to be put on the wall, they're just for me to have experimented and enjoyed creating. So this is how they turned out. You can see there's a lot of layers going on there, it's quite thick, the paint on there. Some of these pieces I really like, some of them I'm not so sure on, but overall I think they look alright. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me create some abstract acrylic art with my paints and my palette knives and my brushes. Yeah, I will see you again in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye!